Welcome back to the next episode of What I'm Not Going to Do Next. So after talking to Steamhead over in the UK, a YouTube inventor that I follow, he was looking through some Arduino code trying to help me with that. We never really could get I couldn't get that mellows function to work like I wanted for that other amplifier, but he noticed that the little solid state amplifiers on the desk there, he said, well, Tom, those are Class D amps, and they put out a PWM output, which I knew, but he reminded me that will mess with what your meter sees, and it messes with some speaker control boards as well. So, okay, so the output may have been okay off that other one, not convinced, but I did have this smaller 120 watt per channel Class D amplifier, and I've used that on different projects, and I know that that worked. And this is the preamp right here, right? So it has treble, mid-range, bass, and volume controls. These are the original knobs I removed off of there. I put some new potentiometers, stereo potentiometers on there with some longer leads and disconnectable connections so that I can easily locate that in my amplifier or my jukebox. So, okay, I'm listening to this thing. I've got an input from an MP3 right here. I'm listening to it, no problem, except it drops in and out constantly. So I have the speakers disconnected right now just for talking purposes, but looking at the scope, you can tell obviously one channel has a lot more output than the other. The other channel has hardly any output whatsoever. And they're both in the same volts per division range on the scope. So one way to affect that, well, I should say, let me back up just a few seconds here. It'll drop in and out. The whole thing will drop in and out sometimes. I can be near it, I can be far away, I can be touching it, not touching it, whatever, and the sound just drops in and out. If I touch the volume knobs, so there it goes right there, I'm now touching the volume control knob, and I can make it just do weird stuff. I have tried a couple of different potentiometers. I've checked all my connections over and over and over. Sometimes it'll happen not just with the volume knob on this preamp, but with the volume control on whatever input I'm using. I've tried 3 different inputs for this preamplifier. Originally, I was using this stereo right here and Bluetoothing from my phone and using the headphones jack out of there. And I thought, well, maybe because that's amplified already and going through another preamp and then an amp, maybe that was just screwing with some things. Just to make sure, I put a cassette in there. It didn't make any difference whatsoever, the same kind of thing. Now I have it going through a media player right here, and that's going to the input. So that should be fine. And I'm still getting the exact same results regardless of what it is. One thing about this amplifier I noticed, it has a left and right channel output output control knobs. They do absolutely nothing. Well, that's not exactly true. That right one, I can turn the right one all the way up and watch the scope go, and it'll affect both channels. The scope will go all the way up. I'm going to do it real quick. Well, there we go, kind of messing it up. The left one does absolutely zero. I can mess with the left one all day long. And right now I'm doing the left one all the way 180 degrees left to right, and it's doing completely nothing. So I'm thinking, okay, well, it's not an expensive amplifier. It's probably junk. Maybe those things aren't meant to really be used. They're just there for, selling purposes and looks. That could be the case. And something may be wrong with this preamp. I mean, I have probably a total of $15 from AliExpress in both those 2 items, so it's not like I have very expensive, but I don't really know because I can't make it consistently mess up. It messes up a lot, but it can mess up from different things. I can be touching the treble knob, the volume knob, the mid-range knob. It'd be adjusting the volume on the input or doing nothing, and it'll just cut sound in and out. So not really sure. I need to get another preamp probably and try that. Maybe another amplifier just to have, since they're not too expensive. The problem is you have to wait weeks and weeks to get them, or you order them from Amazon and for the same things, and you can get them a lot faster but pay 4 times as much. So I don't know. Arduino, all that stuff. I'm still using the same push button now, just the one small relay to operate a bigger relay to turn everything on and off, and all that works great. Like I said, everything works great except for the sound output, which, I mean, that's kind of secondary in a jukebox like this, right? So let me figure out what I'm going to do. I'll be back. a little more messing around, and this time, instead of just inspecting all those solder joints and looking at them and reflowing them, which I've done a couple of times, I actually checked them with the meter from the knob, from this end of the wire all the way to the solder joint in the back side of the board. And I did find 4 that were very questionable, and a couple of them that just plain weren't reading. So after reflowing those several times, I think I was having a really hard time getting the solder to stick to the pads on that board. I've got all of those connections fixed, and they're all good now. Check them all with the meter, everything's good. So I've been playing stuff, and I'm not having nearly the amount of hiccups that it was having before. One of the other things that I also discovered, the top channel that's playing there is just the left speaker channel. But I thought, well, I'm going to check the output of the preamp, and the bottom one there is, so that's preamp output left, and that's preamp output right. So the preamp is definitely putting out to the amplifier. It's just that main amplifier board, which really isn't outputting correctly to the left channel for some reason. Maybe just faulty board. I'm guessing just faulty board. I don't know. I didn't solder any connections on that one, so it's not likely to be a bad solder joint, I don't think. So anyway, I haven't decided yet exactly what to do. I'm definitely going to try, well, unless I figure this out that I've done something wrong on that board, I'm at least going to try another amplifier board, perhaps a different one. Looking at a bunch of different ones, and several of them come with the preamps and amps all put together, and there's a Bluetooth chip and several things that I don't want on there for a lot of money, $40 or $50, something like that for a 20 watt amp or 30 watt amp. But they have better, well, they have reviews, whereas on AliExpress you don't really get reviews. And I just hate doing it if it's something simple that I've done wrong here, or that I just don't have connected properly or something along those lines. Anyway, one thing I did determine, though, if I mess with this volume knob, even with the way it is, it's not cutting out the way it was before, just sitting around. But if I start messing around with the volume, let me see if I can get, well, yeah, I turned it all the way down. Okay, well, I was making it cut out some before just by messing with the volume knob, but I'm now convinced that's my work that's making that happen and not so much the preamplifier. So that thing's probably okay. The amplifier board, I don't think so. Something else I've been thinking about while this was going on, watching the power meter right there, and turning it up as loud as I can stand to hear it, it barely goes over 7.5 watts, 8 watts max. Normal listening volume's about 6.5 watts, a lot louder than I have it right now. So it will be okay for me to go to a much, much smaller amplifier. It's one of the things that, John said, Steamhead said to me as well. He's like, watts really don't matter, and they don't. I know the stuff is made up. They say it's peak to peak, but this stuff is, it's pretty much a lie when they talk about, how powerful something is anymore. It's it's not just, there used to be measured in RMS, now it's measured in peak. It's not just that. Everything's so exaggerated. They might say that might mean peak at full volume with extra voltage and low ohm speakers and all these scenarios which would never possibly happen. And it might do that for a second here or there. It's such an exaggeration that it's a lie. But to catch up on a couple other things that I was doing. So this is a paint shaker that I got. I just recently completely disassembled it and have been painting it. There's a motor that goes in there, some pulleys that go on the front. This shaker goes on the side of this. When the motor spins, it'll have a big pulley there. It'll spin the small one here. It turns this little crankshaft mechanism, which just shakes the paint back and forth on there. That'll be pretty cool for when I'm doing some, painting. Instead of having to stir, there's these pulleys I was talking about. I'm doing a little painting stuff now. I've got the motor disassembled right here. The motor ran before, so should run again. The bearings all look pretty good. I'm just going to clean them up, put some fresh grease in those things, repaint everything. Windings are good. This is not a capacitor start motor. It's one of these, a shunt wound motor, so it's just got a centrifugal switch that takes extra windings out when you start it up after it gets up to speed, so that you don't have to worry about capacitors. A lot of the older motors were that way, and they just last a long time. I have one on a 1934 drill press like that the motor is still good. I mean, I took it apart, cleaned it up just to get the dust out of it and the junk out of it, but there's no problems with it. It still works great. So much different than the modern capacitor start stuff, just because the capacitors fail so quickly. Another thing I recently did is I finally finished my drawer set, which is nice. This has been an ongoing project for a long time. And then I've been working heavily on a way to store some of these drills. So I have all these auger bits, and I've got this little drawer here, and I've got this high density foam that I painstakingly cut out to fit each of those drills in there, right? So that I can easily take them in and out. They've got a, divot, whatever. So I glued that stuff last night. It's really cold overnight here. I use this, I don't remember what it was, E6000 craft glue or something like that. And because it was all bowed up, I put a board on it, I put a bunch of weight on it, did all this, and it just distorted the whole thing. It smashed it, distorted it. Now, I've done some trimming and all that, but I was like, I don't know if I'm going to redo it. I might just leave it. I did the same thing for my little snappy bits down here, made a little tiny drawer in there. And I've got to do some more drawers and some more cutouts. So that's exciting to start getting all that stuff organized. And I've got some card holders for the front of the drawers that I'll put some labels on when I get to that, in the middle of some of this other stuff. Anyway, ready for disappointment number 39. I went on Amazon, read a bunch of reviews. I bought this little amplifier. I see it says on there 100 watts per channel, but that's only under certain circumstances. Under my circumstances, 12 volt input and 8 ohm speakers. It's supposed to be 20 watts per channel. Anyway, got this thing hooked up. I got it playing. I just have it goes through the speaker control board. I just have it unplugged right now so that we're not hearing it. You look on the scope, it looks great. My meter, it shows like 20 millivolts DC per channel. Everything looks good, right? We have good output. The controls mostly work on it, but it doesn't sound good. It sounds tinny. It's got a bass and treble on there, but I cannot make this thing sound even nearly as good as those cheap AliExpress amplifiers that I'm going to throw away when they worked. So in other words, when those things were working, they sounded pretty good, other than the one channel wasn't. And that's even with one channel being super weak. This one, both channels are the same output, strong output. I mean, the sound comes out of the speakers. It's just not a great sound coming out of the speakers. So, I don't know. I might be getting back on that Pioneer amplifier thing. That was for sure the best one I've had so far. It's just really complicated startup and shutdown procedures. And it was a ton of wiring, a ton of mess, a whole lot of space taken up in the cabinet. Not what I wanted to do. All right. Search still on. Till next time. I'm not sure where I left off before, but I've been on the hunt for a well-built, preferably American, older, single-purpose amplifier, Class A, B, or something like that, to get away from the modern Class D Chinese, import cheap amplifier board, just because I haven't had a good experience with them on this project. So I found this marketplace find, paid $100 for this 50 watt per channel 1968 Lafayette amplifier made in New York. And the guy assured me that it sounds great, there's nothing wrong, and all this stuff. I go up there, buy it from him, I'm talking to him, he said, yeah, he's proudly told me he deoxed the potentiometers. And I said, what'd you use? And he says, the D5 stuff. I'm like, oh, great. So, that's potentially going to cause some damage on those things. Tried to clean it out with some contact cleaner, but we'll see. The knobs feel okay. The volume and balance knob are really stiff. I cleaned those things up, made it with contact cleaner, and got that thing working a little bit better. The treble knob, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it if I mess with it, but it's click, 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 click. It's in bad shape. Fortunately, I don't plan to use those. I plan on using some different potentiometers on the front of the package, or front of the jukebox. But regardless, there you go. inside this thing, I said, have you done anything else? And he said, no, the capacitors, all that stuff looks original. And somebody's been in here for sure. I can see some places where it's had some solder damage. I can see the screws around the transformer have been walled out where people use the wrong screwdrivers, that sort of things. But it really looks original. There's not a lot of fudging around or anything like that. Mostly it seems to work okay. Right now I have it hooked up to the scope through a function generator, so I've got about a kilohertz running through it on just the lower channel, just so you know. So the lower channel, the sine wave channel, and when I mess around with the the treble knob, the bass knobs, well, I guess if I zoom in, you can usually see a little bit of difference. Right now I'm not seeing anything, but I have it on pretty quick time per division. So that's what that channel should look like, that bottom channel there. Now if I switch this thing over to the other channel, to the, I guess it's left channel, I'm not sure which one I had it on. So I've got left channel, look at that waveform. That looks like a PWM waveform. It's not sinusoidal at all. And I've not been able to do, messing with all the knobs, the volumes and the, whoop, you know what, there it goes. I was not able to make it turn into a nice sine wave before. So the volume knob was up, it's clipped. So that channel's clipped off at like, man, what is that, about half volume range? Half range, that's probably clipped off right there. Now that I have y'all on the line, let me plug back into the other channel and see if the clipping is in the exact same place. Let's see here. No, I can turn it all the way up. That being said, nothing's happening. I'm turning it up. It's confusing this way, isn't it? Let's take channel 2 off. Let's bring this one up here where we can see a little better. Volume knob, up and down, doing absolutely nothing. There's the treble knob. There's the bass knob. You can see a little bit of a pulse in there, but it's just not really doing much. This, let's see. This thing needs some work. No doubt about it. Well, so there's the next challenge on me. I have what I think will be a nice amplifier for this. You know, not high end, not expensive. We're not talking Marantz or any of that sort of stuff. I get it. But I think it'll be just right for what I'm doing, except it's in rough shape. So let me get a schematic and a service manual and go through here and start seeing what components are causing some problems. Hopefully that will be fun and rewarding and not as frustrating as that last stuff. All right, more to come. It's been several months since I looked at this. Once I got stumped with trying to disassemble it and looking for a schematic, I just stopped and did other things for a while. So ended up looking for an LA 450 schematic and never found anything. But one of the AIs suggested an LA 750 is pretty similar, so I downloaded the schematic for that, and I thought, okay, we'll give that a go. It turns out it's not as similar as I wish. One of the problems that I was having with taking this thing apart was one of these knobs right here for a selector switch, and you can see, I mean, I destroyed it, right? This was destructive disassembly here. Originally, I mean, that thing was epoxied on or something. It was glued on. I tried so much. I thought I was going to break the glass to get it off. Today I finally put vice grips on it, heated it up to about 700 degrees, practically melted it, and was able to get it off of there. So that, and all that was to be able to get to these potentiometers so that I could go in here, clean, lubricate, blah, blah, blah. I think I mentioned last time when I bought this thing, it was supposedly a good working amplifier. Ooh, that sounds good. Hold on. A good working amplifier that the guy had been using and blah, blah, blah. And he had used it, tested it. He had serviced these pots by cleaning with deoxit and all that. I'm calling BS. I mean, there's just absolutely no way. So I'm playing a little bit through it. I was looking at it on the scope and it just didn't look, you know, the outputs did not look right. So I put some speakers on it, and now I'm not even getting any sound except for that buzzing that you hear. So I'm getting some sound through the left speaker, just that crackling through the right speaker. This is the bass knob. This is the treble knob. the volume, and the balance does absolutely nothing. I mean, these pots are trashed. You could tell they were trashed because they were really gritty even before I tried to take it apart. But there's no way that this thing sounded good with that guy. And there's probably some other problems on the board with some capacitors being bad or whatever. He told me it was original as far as he knew. It didn't look like it had ever been into. He was the first person to take the cover off, to clean these things, you know, all that. Every screw head was rounded off in there. They were all Phillips head. I assume they were Phillips head because it's supposedly made in New York, but they could have been JIS or something like that, and somebody screwed them up. Anyway, so even with all these problems, it's good to know that at least I overpaid. I was going through eBay looking for manuals, and I paid $100 for this one. In good condition, supposedly. Obviously it's not. But there's other ones on there with the schematic and including shipping that I could have gotten for $100 or a little less. LA 750, not a 450, but just a few different models of amplifiers like this. When I was looking at eBay, I couldn't find anything like that. All I could find, well, I just couldn't find it. Anyway, but I wasn't searching for Lafayette. I didn't know that was a thing until I ran across it on Marketplace. I'm trying not to beat myself up too much about it, but I'm certainly not happy. My next step here, I've got some, so these are 50K stereo pots. I've got some 47s I'd bought from a different project. I'm going to trade these out for these 47s, and I'm going to test it from there, see what it sounds like before I go through and start pulling capacitors off and checking all those things. I'm sure I'll have to do that, but anyway, one step at a time. We'll see what makes it better the fastest. All right, I'll be back. Into the next phase of troubleshooting on this. I've replaced the bass and treble potentiometers and the volume potentiometer mostly. This is the original volume and balance pot. These last two wires and resistors on there go down to the loudness switch under here. So I think all that does is boost the signal for loudness. I haven't figured out the balance circuit or how that's supposed to work yet. But with these potentiometers on here, I may have bit myself in the butt a little bit because they're, you know, cheap Amazon special 47Ks instead of high quality 50Ks what came on it. So I'm going to show you what problems I'm having now. So it's pulling about 9.3 watts of electricity. It's all powered up. I'm actually got stuff going through it right now. You can see it's really only on channel 2. I've just got turned all the way down. We'll turn up a little bit. You can see the music only on channel 2, nothing really on channel 1. And it definitely sounds mono. It's not. It's clicked in stereo. Now, if I play with this volume knob, we're gonna hear, you'll see the difference. It brings in the bass. I keep going up. I'm going up and up and up in this volume knob. It's not getting a ton louder. Now we're feeling static from channel 1 speaker, and it only got a tiny bit louder. One of the issues, and the bass and the treble knobs actually do work. They actually do some stuff. So it's really just this volume knob, which is just weird. Turn this back down. So at this stage, I'm thinking I've just got to get some higher quality potentiometers on here to be able to go to the next step. When I replaced it, I added a lot of lengths of wire because this new potentiometer is going to go in the front of the cabinet and not in the front of this little case. So I needed that extra length, and I just went through and completely replaced the wires and soldered my new cables directly to the board. One thing that's a little bit different is the original cables were shielded. So these are single wire plus a shield around it for a ground, and the new ones I have were not shielded. I did put a ground, you know, they're 3 conductor, so there's a ground in there. It's just not a shield. I didn't think that'd be much of a problem, especially not in the open air like this without a case around it or cabinet or anything. And I'm still not convinced that has anything to do with what's going on. I do think it has to do with what I've done. So I've fixed some stuff. The knobs are better and introduced other stuff. So yesterday, before I even started this, it would only play out of the left channel. Now it's really only playing out of the right channel. And it just sounds pretty bad out of that. So let's just order some more parts and we'll try that. In the meantime, I'm probably gonna go through, I've been trying to check some voltages on this board. not sure what they're supposed to be. I'd love to figure out that balance circuit, make sure I've got that. I want to just, I don't want to even, there's no reason for me to ever adjust balance from left to right. I just want it to stay in the middle. But without a good schematic, I'm having trouble even figuring that out. Looks like I'm onto something here. So I've got the speakers disconnected, but it's playing right now. So you can see, I forget if that's the left channel. One of the channels has got music going through it. The other channel is a pretty flat line. What I figured out is I'm playing around with my solder joints and everything else. So this volume knob, it's a linear potentiometer, and it should be logarithmic, but anyway, it's not. So that's the difference between, when the volume, when I turn it up and down, I think is what it causes it to lose some bass, treble, whatever. More stuff comes in as I bring it up. I think that's the problem there. I've got no experience with that. But what I was doing is probing around, and as I probe on, the center pin on, say, so if I probe on the right pin, you can see that bottom line now is showing music, right? I take it off, it's flat. I probe on the right pin. You can see the signal, right? So I go to the center pin, which is the wiper, nothing, 0. If I go to the other channel, the center pin wiper, it's there. You can see it. It's this potentiometer. So even though it's not the right style of potentiometer, it's also a faulty potentiometer. All right, so I definitely have to go order some parts. Be back on this whenever I get that, I guess. While waiting, I decided to take apart the bass and treble pots. I have them removed. I thought I've got really nothing to lose there. See what I can figure out. So this was the bass pot. I had the whole thing apart, both sides, and everything tested perfectly. Put a meter on it. The carbon wipers they look in good shape. The little metal, I don't know if you can see the little metal tracks that go on the carbon. Everything's in good shape, and it tests right on my multimeter. Then I was putting it back together, and I think I see the problem. If you look at this plastic piece, you see that crack? So this thing had fallen off and gotten out of sync. So I think both of those were out of sync on this pot. So then I started taking apart the other one, and I didn't get the front off. I just got the back off of the treble pot. And if you look carefully in there, you can see the 3 little metal wiper things. One of them is all wadded up on the carbon track. So that's all wadded up. And if you notice, there's a 4-way, I don't know what it is, like a washer, I guess, a cross-shaped washer with some glue on it to hold that plastic piece on there with the wiper. This other pot is missing it, and it was not in there. So my guess is that this thing snapped, came apart, the glue broke loose, whatever, because the pot got twisted too far, and it may have come out somehow. I don't know how it could have come out. I don't know where it is. Maybe it didn't have one. Maybe this just didn't have one. I'm quite sure that it didn't fall, that I didn't just drop it in here. I did look around just to make sure, but because I've never had these apart before, I was pretty careful and watching pretty closely. So I don't know. I thought this one, maybe if I cleaned it up, super glued that thing, glued it back together, it might be salvageable, but I think it's a temporary fix. I don't think it's going to work. And this other one, I'm probably going to try the same kind of thing. The plastic's already obviously pretty brittle and old, so it might break when I take this loose. I'm going to try it anyways. But the way that wiper, that third arm is all wadded up, gosh, I don't know. I might just cut it off. If I try to straighten it back out and put it back in there, I'm thinking that it'll just do the same thing again. So that's where we're at. For reference, this one's pretty bad. So this is what it's supposed to look like. You see the 3 little wipers and how they run on that carbon track right there? Okay, that's the top portion of the potentiometer. The bottom portion, so that fits in here. The bottom portion is here. And this inside ring, which is completely distorted. That's like the slip ring, which goes to the center of our wiper ring here. And you can see this thing is even off center a lot. What's happened there is the plastic is broken down. That clip is broken off, which allows this thing to move back and forth like that, which has distorted that center slip ring and caused that outer wiper ring to wad up. I'm gonna try some epoxy. I'm gonna clean this whole thing up, see if I can hold it together a little bit with some super glue, which is exactly what I did with the back of that other one. I love this Star Bond. You can get it thin, thick, whatever. I mean, this bottle right here I opened, God, it's got to be 6 or 8 months old, and I've hardly used that much of it. I use it for woodworking. I use it for everything. So it's less than half gone, and it's still good. This is the best super glue I've ever had. Otherwise, most of it's like one-time use, in the bottle. Anyway, okay, back off that advertisement. I'm going to try. I don't know. I'm still going to get online to DigiKey or something and see, how much new ones cost. If I can get these things put back together, even on a temporary basis, to make this amplifier work, so I can finish troubleshooting everything else, I'm going to do that, because it's really holding me up for all the next steps on this jukebox. So, okay, that's where I'm at. We'll see how this works out tomorrow. Straighten out the little slip ring. What I ended up doing is put a tiny bit of super glue under the one still pin side of this, straightened out as best I could, drilled a hole using that little pin drill through the other side, mixed up some JB Weld, got it underneath a little bit and through the hole in the bottom. It's hopefully not in the way, but I can file a little bit if I need to. It looks like more when I'm solely zoomed in, but in real life it's not very built up. And on the other potentiometer, after I super glued with inside the crack on there and try to get it to wick in around between the shaft and that Bakelite plastic, I scratched it up pretty good, put a little bit of JB Weld on the edge of that. We'll see. Well, good morning. Come out here to check on progress. Everything looks good. The epoxy dried well. Can't really do much one-handed, but everything spins like it should. This is the one that had the wadded up trace in there, the wiper ring. Was able to get all that straightened out. Everything looks good, spins like it should. Unfortunately, let's see if I can do this in one hand. This is a 50K potentiometer. You see what it's showing? 92, and that's only on the back side. The front side of this one shows 78. Both of these, even though everything seems to work perfectly, both are 65K. The potentiometers are 50K. So that just shows that the carbon traces in there are really deteriorated. I think that's what that means. And I have cleaned them, used contact cleaner. I've used some Deoxit F5, which is supposed to be a cleaner lubricator just for carbon trace stuff. None of it seems to make a difference. Like I said, the pots now are good working order. They're just all the wrong values, probably because they're 55 years old from 1968. Is that 55? It's old. I'll be back. I think I'm 3 steps further ahead, 1 step back. This is the volume and balance pot, disassembled. So the way you notice, these are an unusual pot. You've got some extra terminals on the backside of it, and this resistor, I think it's a 25K roughly resistor, and that's where the loudness button came in on both sides. So this would be the bottom, this would be the top. When you turn this brass knob, which slid, so the stem goes through the brass knob here, okay? When you turn this brass knob, using friction, it would also turn this aluminum rod, and it would operate both sides of the potentiometer like a stereo pot. If you turn just this aluminum one, it did not turn the front brass one, only the back one. That must have been the balance. So if you have the right channel on one, the left channel on the other, by operating them independently, you change how much sound goes to each channel. I did not suspect it was going to work like that, but that seems to be how it is. The traces, seem to be pretty good. The carbon tracks and all that. I think it's a 50K like it says. That resistor makes it a little bit troublesome to measure, and I guess I'll take that off and double check everything. One issue that I've run into with it is that the lower wiper ring, see that Bakelite plastic, is broken in half. It's hard for me to tell on the phone, exactly what it is going to look like on a screen, but it's snapped. So, and it's crooked. I mean, you can see that. Hopefully, you can see that it's just, they're not even lined up. So I am going to try to take that plastic wiper ring and all that stuff off of the shaft, fix that, put it back together, put the whole thing back together, and hopefully still be able to use this one for the volume. I think what I'll do is, well, not sure if I'll change the balance thing or just leave it as it is. It's probably not a big deal. So I mentioned before that I thought it was supposed to be a logarithmic pot instead of a linear one, which is something I heard on probably watching some videos. I don't know exactly where I heard that, but somewhere along the lines I learned volume pots should be, logarithmic. This isn't. It's best I can tell by checking it with the meter is it's linear all the way around, unless that resistor where it comes in and changes the signal about halfway through. So it's very linear up until those wiper rings get right around to here. Then it changes resistance a lot because of that, because you've got signal coming back up from that wiper through the resistor into it. So, I mean, this is what it is. I'm not really sure. Like I said, I have no experience with that. First time dealing with it. We'll see. I don't know. But I don't know how I would find another one. I still haven't been on DigiKey or anywhere looking. But it seems like kind of a specialty potentiometer, whereas those bass and treble ones seem pretty ordinary. This one seems like it would be a lot more trouble to try to find a replacement that would fit that. So I'm going to see if I can fix it, put it back together, and hopefully use it. I finally got a BNC splitter for my function generator so that I can use like a 1 kilohertz or whatever frequency sine wave that I want to put into the amplifier and measure that on the oscilloscope instead of trying to use music. So I have both of these two BNC cables going to the auxiliary inputs on the amp. This is on the output of the amp. It looks terrible. So that's as smooth as I can get it. And I got the volume knob down here. I'll put back together, and with just a meter, it checks okay. Back and forth, both the top and the bottom carbon tracks check the same. I don't remember if they were 50K exactly, but everything seemed to check okay on this. However, when I turn the volume knob, turning, you don't really see much changing. Nothing's changing. I get down really low, almost at the bottom, you just lose the left channel there. And you can see the distortion happens even worse there. Nothing on the top, like 7/8 of the turn on that. I don't really know what's going on. I'm going to say that because the output of this amplifier is so choppy like that, and I know it's a smooth sine wave going in because that function generator, I've used it a few times, that this has got to be some bad capacitors in this unit down here. And there's quite a few of them. So, I mean, nothing looks blown out. Nothing looks like it's leaked. But, and I've been reticent to go through and just start pulling them and checking them and all that because I know that these potentiometers have been a problem, and I assume that they can disguise a lot of stuff with those caps, because if these guys aren't tracking smoothly and the carbon tracks are bad, you won't get a good signal through those knobs. However, at this point, and I still don't think that this volume pot is good, even though, I mean, I took it all apart, cleaned it, fixed it, re-glued it, put it all back together. It checked okay out of circuit with a meter. just judging by what I'm getting up here, it just this doesn't seem right. But I have, yeah. So anyway, my next thing is I'm going to start on these capacitors. I think start pulling some of those guys, checking them, see what I can figure out right there. I don't automatically buy all of those things new because I mean, it would be another $150 just for capacitors on this amp that I already overpaid for, and that's just not what I wanted to do. So I don't know. I'll do an update here next step. I decided there was an intermission in order because I was troubleshooting and doing all these things with it either hooked up to those speakers, which sounded off and I didn't like, or with no load on it whatsoever. So I went out and I built a dummy load that will switch between a three-way switch here to go between speakers, 8 ohms or 4 ohms. I've got inputs down here at the bottom that come out of the amplifier. I've got my outputs here. These are going up to my bookshelf speakers up there. These B and C outputs actually couple straight to the inputs. Those go to my scope. And inside this thing, there's actually a little speaker protector board down there in the bottom. Those are the relays and the switches and things like that that actually control where the outputs is going to be. The actual resistors, load resistors, are mounted on the back side of this. Some big 200 watt. I'll show you those in a second. Pause works great. So yeah, that's my load resistors right down there. Speakers mounted up there. Works pretty well that way. So now I had to go back to and actually watch an earlier video because it's been so many months, I was getting lost on where I started and where I'm ending up. And it's still obviously bad. So what I've got, the bottom scope right here, that is the output of the amplifier, straight from the box, straight from the output of the amplifier, and it looks terrible. Well, I've got a 1 kilohertz sine wave going into it. The top scope right there is at the input of the volume knob, not at the wiper ring. So that's what the volume knob is getting. That's obviously not a sine wave. It actually looks rectified. So at this point, I'm thinking that maybe where I'm taking this from, you know, when I changed everything wire for wire, you know, I checked it about 3 times, but maybe I've got something backwards. Maybe I've got one of those inputs soldered to the wrong place in the back of that board. The schematic would definitely help me figure out if I've done something, screwed something up, but I can't think of what else it could be besides that. The other thing that's interesting, this is with the volume knob all the way down, and it's pulling 25 watts right now, a little over 1/4 of an amp, and you see the voltage is down to 107 volts. So if I turn this thing off, turn the amp off right now, it's actually 117 volts coming in to the board. So this is a short circuit protection module that I've got here, and that light bulb on top is now wired in parallel with my load so that if there's a short, that light bulb should light up, right? Well, pulling the voltage down, high wattage pulling the voltage down makes me think there's something going on internally. Now, if I turn that volume knob up, watch what happens to this light bulb. The light bulb's starting to light up. So I have got some kind of a short inside this amplifier somewhere. Also, changing the volume knob does very little to improve the sine waves that we're looking at on the oscilloscopes. So a little bit of work to do. I'll be back. I forgot to mention I need to do a follow-up on that paint shaker. So the paint shaker is complete. Right now I've just got it sitting on some floor on some new rubber mounts that I've got for the bottom of it. I've replaced the seal and the output shaft seal. It still leaks a little bit, hence that rag underneath it. Even with a brand new seal, the shaft cleaned up, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to solve that. And what I did to control it is I just took this old box, got an Amazon timer, and so I can push this button. I can set the timer for seconds, minutes, whatever. Depends on how long I want to shake paint for. Just an e-stop switch there, but watch what happens when I do this. So this thing, it's all over the floor. Yeah, so obviously I'm gonna have to do something different, and I'm not anchoring that down to the concrete and have those anchors break up my concrete either. I'm not sure how that thing was originally supposed to have been mounted. It's got cups on the bottom of it, 4 rubber feet, just like I put in it, but the balance is so far off, and there was nothing, I saw nothing that should make it look that way. And imagine putting a gallon of paint in there. I don't know how much a gallon of paint weighs, 20 pounds, 15 pounds, something like that. I mean, it's going to be a mess. So what I'm thinking about doing is making a spring base for it. I'm imagining sandwiching a couple of pieces of plywood together with some heavy springs in the middle, so that, and this thing mounts fixed to the top base plate so that it shakes, the springs vibrate, maybe the thing doesn't go all over the floor. I don't know, but it's a couple things going on, so that's back burner for a while. Intermission, while I was waiting for the capacitors to come in for that amplifier, I do have them now, all good name brand capacitors for that. I went ahead and started on this power supply. I bought this thing supposedly working, but when I got it home to cover off, I found a lot of damage right there. What it was a little thyristor, a little silicon controlled rectifier, had shorted and burned up a couple of resistors. I had those resistors, replaced that, had to look and find another thyristor to replace it. That is what is called for to be the replacement one. It's supposed to be a drop-in. Seems to work. So got my power supply going. These are really, really accurate, and I don't know, they're more than 10 turn pots, whereas this one right here might be a single turn pot. It's only a 6-volt power supply on the bottom. So, and it's a lot of adjustment. I got to figure that out. The service manual I found for it really isn't a service manual. It's schematics and parts lists, but not how to service or adjust anything. So there's a lot of adjustments on the side. I'm going to work on that here in just a little bit. But so these top two are 36 volts a piece, positive or negative, or I can take the positive to the negative and make that a what's that? 36 and 36, 72 volts across the two of them. Yeah, so that's pretty good. I had also bought this Syncor transistor leakage tester, also working from a ham show, but it didn't really work. So when I got it home and tried to do stuff, nothing happened. Fortunately, I had some good capacitors for that, replaced those. That works pretty good. So some other goodies. I just got this desoldering station. It's actually soldering and desoldering, depending on which way you flip the switch. That's a soldering iron, desoldering gun. It's a little bit of a shame that you can't have them both on at the same time, because if you're replacing components one by one, which I'll be doing in this, you got to have that desoldering gun hot to desolder them, and then obviously you need a soldering iron, so you can't go back and forth. So that, like, one piece of equipment, dual purpose, but not at the same time, which is inconvenient. Fortunately, I still have my old Radio Shack one, which works. The other stuff that I just did is, oh my gosh, look at these goodies over here. So I found this thing on eBay, this dual 1228, and I decided to go ahead and get it because, well, they had it marked for, I don't know, $150, and I offered them a lot less. They took 90, and I thought, because they broke the on-off switch, so they're very mechanical underneath these things, and they had tried to force it, and I think it's just a little, I think that's plastic switches, so I'm going to make something for that, or figure out something for that. Refurbish this thing. That should look nice. That'll be a nice turntable. Really looking forward to that. Got this little amplifier for like $20 off of from Goodwill, and this thing I'm going to mount permanently underneath my workbench so I can test things. So I can, if I want to refurbish a turntable or a cassette deck or something that doesn't have its own amplifier outputs, I'll be able to use this for it. It's interesting that it's also Bluetooth, so if I'm testing, say, speakers or something that I've done on that side, I can stream something to it from my phone, test speakers that way. These other three big pieces of junk right here, I was able to get pretty cheap because they're rough. They're rough. They've been sitting in somebody's, shed for decades, perhaps. But this big one here is a spectrum analyzer, and that should help me be able to do AM and FM tuner alignments as I refurbish some of those receivers that I've got. I've never used one, I've never touched one or played with one, so it's probably not working. He did not guarantee me that these were working. As a matter of fact, he said, I have no idea, they're probably going to take some work. So I'm figuring I'm going to have to refurbish these things. That's okay, I'll get to it one of these days. That sucker is heavy. I mean, I carried it in here by myself and put it up, but it is really, really heavy. This one, this little Motorola setup, says it's a high gain broadband mixer and frequency synthesizer. So in the picture, it was, at a glance, I thought it was a frequency counter, which I was really looking forward to having because that would help me check the speed on cassette decks and turntables, stuff like that. It's not. It's a frequency synthesizer. I honestly have no idea what that thing is or what it's for. So that'll be fun to look up. And then this oscilloscope, which was really just, I mean, I paid $200 for all three of these things. So, so there's nothing in this oscilloscope, and it probably doesn't work, but it's kind of cool. It'll be one of those things where I may get it working, clean it up, and it's just a decoration. I have some pretty nice scopes that I use, but this is an old school, all discrete component built Tektronix. I think Tektronix, isn't it? Well, Type 453. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Tektronix scope. So it'll be neat. Now I'll have to build some more workbench to have all this stuff. Lots of goodies. So I figured out the 5-volt power supply. So source C is this board right here on top. So I could adjust them. I could adjust the max voltage. It would change things, but I was not able to align the meter with the knob on whatever voltage I particularly wanted to. So okay, so I start checking components out at this point. Check this big capacitor. It's 100 microfarad at 50. I think it was reading 288. I'm like, okay, well, there's something, and I happen to have one. Thought, well, while I'm here, I'm going to start checking some resistors and putting some black dots by the ones that are suspect, that are way out. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's almost everything. Almost everything here is checking way out of spec. I have not checked any transistors. Even these little inline capacitors down here are checking as resistors. I mean, no capacitance at all. I don't know how it's working as well as it is. So at this point, I don't know, I need to rebuild the board, which then I would need to rebuild those boards, which there's also a bunch of discrete components down inside there, but it seems to work mostly. It's just a little bit out of calibration on that bottom source. So I think at this point, because I have so many things going on, I'm going to call it good enough. And I've got a parts list right here, so when I get ready, I'll just order everything and start replacing components on these boards, and hopefully then it'll last another, however old this is, 50 or 60 years. This installment's getting pretty long, so I decided it'd be good to just stop it here. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm not trying to be a YouTube creator, content creator. This just seems like a pretty neat way to catalog some of my projects instead of still pictures, and be able to share them with friends and family, that sort of thing. So I've already started putting some caps on that Lafayette amplifier, but it's so hot out there in the shop, and I've been having a lot of heat problems this year that I don't know, it's hit and miss when I go out there and mess with it, and it may be a while before I get back out there and try troubleshooting it. And the signal is bad going throughout it, so I'm pretty sure I'm doing the caps first. I'm pretty sure it's not going to fix it. I'm pretty sure there's going to be some transistor issues, and anyway, we'll see. So the next installment should hopefully have that thing, show a little bit of my struggle with it, a little bit more of my struggle with it, and then have it completed, and maybe even installed in the cabinet. I don't know, who knows, but that could be a while.